Now let's go back to what happened over the weekend. The news that hurt a lot of people, and that of course is the death of Archbishop Lwanga. They call it the sudden death of Archbishop Lwanga. He was found dead in his house on Saturday, and a number of politicians are saying that his death needs to be investigated because they are questioning it. Now, Robert Kyagulanyi was one of those people who was speaking during the Mass on Easter Sunday, and he says the death of Archbishop Lwanga needs to be investigated because he said there's something wrong that he feels happened with Archbishop Lwanga. A number of bishops around the country described him as one of the people who was strong and fought against injustices in the country. He was one of the people who spoke fearlessly and loudly about injustices. We remember recently he spoke about the people who were kidnapped and said that government needs to bring them back, and he feels for them, and he prayed for their souls. Remember that happened, and he talked about a number of things. Now in 2018, the bishop himself went to church. And one of his sermons while he was in church was about the fact that he had received a phone call from an unknown number. And this is how he described it. He said, I was in church preaching, I was at home resting, and that's what he was saying when he was preaching in church. And then I received a phone call from a number that said unknown. I picked it up, and the man had a Western accent, a Runyankore accent. And he told me, you need to be careful because you're next. There are people in your church who the government has made spies, and they're saying that you and a number of other people are planning to overthrow this particular government. And he said, but that is not true. And he called upon the women and the men in church to stop lying. He said, you people need to stop lying about me because I have done nothing of the sort. And he said it during his sermon. He told President Museveni, Your Excellency, if we were against you, then we wouldn't be voting you back to power over and over again. But he looked a bit scared for his life during that sermon. And we've seen a number of things that came off internet while he was saying he was scared for his life because people were saying, you're next, Archbishop. And now that he has died, the speculations that are coming out and people are saying post-mortem has to be done. However, the immediate result that came out was that he died of a heart attack. Now, Bobby Wine, while talking to the masses, said Cyprian Kizito Lwanga, the Archbishop of Kampala, his death remains unclear and raises questions about what exactly is going on. And he says that Lwanga joined several prominent personalities whose death have been shrouded by mystery. Now, aside from Robert Kyagulanyi, there's also President Museveni, who came in and talked about Lwanga's death and said that he's a man who spoke out against injustices and he hopes that his soul rests in eternal peace. But who is Archbishop Lwanga and how do we know him? Now, the thing we know about the Archbishop Lwanga is that he was chosen as the 6th bishop of Uganda in 2016, and he was one of the people who went through the schools of theology, and he earned his part where he was. He was born on 19th January 1953, and he died, of course, on 3rd April 2021. And before he died, he gave an amazing sermon on Friday, and he talked about a number of things, and that was before his death. And people were surprised to wake up to the news of his death on Saturday. Very sad indeed. And as we were praying and celebrating Easter, we were also celebrating his sacrifice and what he did to the Catholic Church. Now, he was a Ugandan Roman Catholic who served as an Archbishop of Kampala from 2006 to his death. From 1996 to 2006, he served as Bishop of Kasana, Luwero. Let's look at a little bit about his background and education, and then we'll later look at his priesthood because his life needs to be celebrated. Now, as I told you earlier, he was born on 19th January 1953 in Nagalama Parish, which is now Mukono district, and it is the Buganda region of Uganda, and he was born within the Roman Catholic Diocese of Lugazi. He attended a number of schools, but as soon as he finished his primary school, the bishop entered Nyenge Seminary in 1964, and he studied at Katigondo National Major Seminary, which is now in Kalungu district. He then went ahead to study theology at Gaba National Seminary in Kampala. We all see it as we are passing through Gaba. And then in 1979, he joined the University of Clermont-Ferrand in France, where he studied administration in a number of languages with a particular emphasis on administration. He later studied at Pontifical University of the Holy Cross. It only shows you his history as he studied theology. As soon as he finished primary, he knew what he wanted to do, and he dedicated his life, of course, to Christianity and Christ. Now, he was ordained as a priest on 8th April 1978 at Rubaga Cathedral by Cardinal Emmanuel Chiwanuka Nsubuga, and he served as a priest of Kampala Archdiocese until 30th of November 1996. When did he receive his bishop? When did he become the first bishop? He was appointed in the Diocese of Kasana, Luwero on 30th November 1996, and he was consecrated bishop on 1st March of 1997. For those, of course, who didn't know about Bishop Lwanga, we're here to inform you about how his life was, about how he became a bishop, about his priesthood, about his education, and we're here to celebrate a number of issues that he brought on the forefront and a number of injustices that he brought on the forefront. Now, in 19th August 2006, he was appointed the third Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Kampala, and he was installed as the third Archbishop of Kampala on 30th December 2006 at Rubaga Cathedral, and at that particular time, he succeeded Cardinal Emmanuel Wamala, who resigned as the Archbishop. And then on 2nd February, he issued a decree that Catholics in the Archdiocese of Kampala could only receive Holy Communion on the tongue and not on the hand. Look at that. Now, he was found dead in his house, and the spokesperson of the Uganda Episcopal Conference, Father Philip Odi, is the person who announced it and said that he died from heart attack. Now, that is the little information that we managed to bring up and come together with as the First Show team to share with you about his life as he died, I believe, and that's what Yoweri Kaguta Museveni said. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni said Lwanga died, the Archbishop Lwanga died as a believer, and other people should look at his life and pick a leaf or two from his word, and those were the words of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. As of course, yes, he gave his Easter message, and he was telling Ugandans during his Easter message that they need to be careful about COVID-19, and when they're saying the lowering of COVID-19 and they think they can also lower their gap, something needs to happen. Now, Uganda received COVID-19 jobs, and so far we had 964,000 vaccines. Some people say 9,000 flat, some people say 964,000. The first one was 864,000, and the second group of jab that we received, of course, from China was 100, and the first one was from COVAX, and that is the AstraZeneca vaccine that we received from these two places as a rule to have the number of these vaccines donated in Africa. Now, why I brought in COVID-19 and Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is that the death of Lwanga, according to some people, was linked to COVID-19 because there was a very, very old picture that was circulated in media about Lwanga having a session with John Pombe Magufuli and John Pombe Magufuli kissing his hands. However, that is a very, very old picture, and if COVID-19 was in existence by then, he would have died from COVID-19 already. But again, like I said, speculations are he died of heart attack, and we're continuing to hear and wait for the investigations of the post-mortem result for us to figure out what exactly happened and what are the results of his death that are coming our way. A number of people say his Friday sermon was very, very inspirational, and they're looking forward for more messages from him. We remember when Robert Chagulanyi accused religious leaders of not being able to raise their voices against the injustices that are happening in the country, and he said that these religious leaders, however, follow through and promote Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's message, and they don't condemn the wrong that he does. However, he applauded Lwanga for being among the leaders who made sure that he spoke about injustice with the loudest voice he could while he was the Archbishop of Kampala. Now, as we're continuing with the news about Yoweri Kaguta Museveni asking people not to lower their guard because COVID-19 is still in existence, and that was embedded in his Easter message, he warned them and asked them to keep adhering to the standard operating procedures. Now, like I told you earlier, remember that Uganda had received vaccines, over 964,000 vaccines of COVID-19, and a number of people at that time were vaccinated. Teachers were vaccinated, doctors were vaccinated, the UPDF was vaccinated, prisons was vaccinated, police was vaccinated, and very recently, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was also vaccinated and given the COVID-19 jab together with his wife, Janet Kataha Museveni. They were given this vaccine, and a lot of people had earlier on said that if Yoweri Kaguta Museveni does not receive that vaccine, neither of them will do so. They say that they needed to see the President of the Republic of Uganda receiving that vaccine for them to be able to receive that vaccine as well. Now, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, after receiving the vaccine, talked about the fact that there were actually no side effects to the vaccine. Jane Ruth Acheng was one of the people who received the vaccine and said there was no side effect of the vaccine, and a number of other officers. Muhoozi was one of the people that also received the vaccine. Now, currently we have 40,962 cases, and those are cases of coronavirus, and we have 40,452 that have successfully recovered, and we have a number of 333 cases of this particular COVID-19 cases of pandemic that died. And Uganda should be one of those countries that celebrates the fact that we have very little or very few numbers of COVID-19. Now, a number of people were fearing that the vaccine was actually coming to kill us instead of heal us. However, Jane Ruth Acheng and the number of people who took it said no need to fear, and we're here to show you that we took the vaccine and we're still okay. And speculation, of course, came out that none of these officials actually took the COVID-19 vaccine because it was an empty job that was put in their skin and that was injected in them. And of course, Jane Ruth Acheng said that was not true, and those speculations are going to be coming in. Adams Mayambala did for us a report to look at the COVID-19 vaccine and figure out what is it about the COVID-19 vaccine that people are talking about. Countries like Spain and countries like South Africa have decided to let go of the COVID-19 vaccine. Countries like Germany had decided to let go of the COVID-19 vaccine. But why? So Adams Mayambala did for us that research and brought for us the details of the COVID-19 vaccine. And according to him, there's really no problem with COVID-19 because the World Health Organization sat down and tried to connect the blood clots that was said to affect a number of people and then later lead to death with the COVID-19 vaccine, and then they found that there was no connection. Some people died, according to these countries, from the COVID-19 vaccine, but the World Health Organization said there was really no problem with the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, As we're going on with the COVID-19 conversation and the number of people who received the COVID-19 jab and the fears that have been spreading, and Yoweri Museveni finally getting the jab, the question, of course, is that will the economy be open? Remember, our economy was shut down earlier than when the first case of COVID-19 was received in Uganda. Now, on the 18th of March 2020, was when a lot of economies were shut down, including schools, including bars, which have not been opened to date, including concerts, which have not been opened to date. Now, on the 21st of March, a man from Dubai, the one who lives in Chibuli, came with the first case of COVID-19 into the country, and after that, we saw the numbers raising one day after the other. Now, schools were closed for almost a year, and the children stayed home for almost a year. Now they're in school, and the primary 7 candidates have finished their examination, and they are now in holiday. And then we also know that the other candidates are also going to be sitting for their exams really soon, and then the group of other semi-candidates are going to school sooner or later. Now, as we're discussing the schools that were shut down and semi-candidates who are coming back to school, according to Museveni quote, he said, this is yet another Easter where we're celebrating in a somber mood. Of course, he was talking about the death of Lwanga and, of course, the fact that COVID-19 is in existence and we could not celebrate Easter the way we wanted to. He said this time with optimism because of the availability of the vaccine against the deadly coronavirus, and we thank God for his advancement. Yoweri Museveni is very sure that Uganda will be receiving the COVID-19 vaccine sooner or later, and he makes it clear that our doctors are working on the COVID-19 vaccine and will be able to deal with a second wave of COVID-19 vaccine. He, however, says that nobody should throw the precautions and guidelines away which have been put in place, and he says people need to stay vigilant and follow the SOPs that have been put by the Ministry of Health. Museveni also says that Easter is central because it is a day of believers to reflect on their life, and he says it is also one to celebrate the power of love and the power of life. And he went on to give a number of teachings on Easter. He also noted the peace and the power of Jesus' resurrection should prevail in everyone's heart as they celebrate Easter, and that was the message of Yoweri Museveni, the message that he gave during Easter. And that's why the first thing when I came, I asked, how did you celebrate your Easter? And did you actually have time with family, or were you scared of COVID-19? And if you went to church, did you ensure that you follow the SOPs that were put in place? Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is very important, especially with the COVID-19 situation that we are having in store. Now, those are some of the headlines that, of course, made it into the first show, and we're discussing the news that came in. The first one, of course, was the death of Lwanga, very sad news, and then we had Akon, who is in the country, and then we also have Yoweri Museveni, who says we do not need to lower our guard, especially in the COVID-19 situation. However, the country and Uganda as a whole will be mourning the death of Archbishop Lwanga, because he was one of those people who was very inspirational when it came to his messages and preaching in church on Friday. We received his last sermon, and it was also one of those very impressive sermons. Now we'll take a short break, but then we'll be back to discuss a number of other stories that have made it on our headlines this morning. Stay with us at the first show, of course, as we bring you more details and discuss them and cut them into swallowable pieces and see that we set the agenda for you. What is it that is making the conversation today?